Hi everyone and welcome back. Here is super cold, and what's better than a warm soup to snuggle up in a cold winter's evening? What's better to feel recharged and cozy? But I have bad news. I lost my favorite keychain, so I decided to make a new one with the red cabbage dye, of course. Today we'll taste the violet. Let's start cooking. Let's peel a big potato and cut it into big cubes. We don't need to spend so much time in this because we have to boil it and blend it. After rinsing the potato, we're going to add it into a big pot with 700 ml of water and 2 vegetable bouillon cubes. Mine are homemade, and if you want, I'll leave the recipe for you down below. Let it boil, and in the meanwhile, we're going to chop roughly about 450–100 grams of red cabbage. If you prefer a more liquid soup, consider to increase the water amount or decrease the quantity of red cabbage. Then, in a large cooking pan or saucepan, we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil and start to cook the red cabbage for a few minutes. Probably the water's boiling, so let's check if potatoes are soft and add potatoes and a bit of broth in the red cabbage pan. If not, cook the red cabbage on low heat until the water starts to boil and the potatoes are soft enough to be spared with a fork. We're going to keep adding broth little by little until the red cabbage is cooked and soft. Then we can blend. Let's check if our soup needs salt, oil or fresh cracked black pepper, and add the remaining broth if needed. The cabbage is quite sweet, so add as much seasoning as you like, but don't overdo with salt because the sweetness of red cabbage is amazing on its own. Let's serve this sweet, tasty and healthy soup while it's hot and decorate it with an optional teaspoon of coconut milk or plant-based cooking cream and some croutons toasted in a pan with a bit of oil. Just for presentation, or enjoyed it plain as it's. And now that we have food in our belly and we're in the right mood, it's time to use the outer leaf of our red cabbage. Other leaves are edible, but sometimes they may be wilted. Let's chop it, add a bit of water and start to blend. Strain the mixture and boil it for a bit. Strain again and add some vinegar to make purple or baking soda to make light blue. I added both of them. Then we're going to add 6 clean white cotton fabric stripes. Mine are about 40 centimeters. I used an old bed sheet turned into dust clothes and torn stripes, and let them soak for at least 1 hour, or if not, overnight. The day after, we're going to soak for a few seconds the stripes in clean water, just to remove the excess color and wring them very well. This step is optional. The only important thing is to wring stripes as much as we can. Then let them dry completely, preferably not in the direct sunlight. The color may fade a bit. First things to do is remove threads of the fabric. Then we're going to make narrower stripes, folding them and pressing them a bit. I use this old iron. Yes, it's a real one. It belonged to my great-grandmother and she used it to ironing collars and cuffs. I use it to press my stripes, but we can also do it with our hands or a book or something else. Now the fun part, let's create our keychain. We're going to prepare strands, holding them with some sellotape or with something heavy, and now we can start. Starting on the left side, the first strand goes under the second one, over the next 3 ones and under the last one. Again, the first one goes under the second one, over the next 3 and under the last one, and so on until the end of the braid. Now we can use one of the strands to cover the other ones. Then we're going to sew, but feel free to use fabric glue to finish the braid. Now I have to confess, I can't sew. As I said, I like to experiment, so I decided to try. But if you can sew or know a better method to finish this braid, feel free to use it, and if you want, write it for me in the comments. At the end, cut off any surplus and repeat the process on the other side. Now we can choose the shape of our keychain. I decided to sew the two flaps together and cover the edges with a piece of fabric. I added some small roses, just for decoration, made with the sunburst stripes. Probably it's not my best work, but for me it was a success because I love this delicate violet color, the keychain works, and most of all, I didn't pierce myself with a needle. Not once! I'm very proud of this. With an underestimated veggie like red cabbage and a bit of creativity, we can make amazing things. From a healthy, delicate and velvety soup to warm up our dinners and take care of our bodies, to an useful, handmade keychain, big enough to find it easily in our bags, but light enough to not weigh down them. As always, I'll leave the written recipe down in the description with all the exact measurements for you. I'd love to know what do you think about my soup and my keychain, or if you want to try to make one of them. So leave me a comment and don't forget to tag me on my Instagram page to show me your creations. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell to get informed of whenever I create new content. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, I wish you an awesome week. Bye!